Welcome everybody to this week's edition of our Alternative Health Lab. Really happy to be here and have an awesome guest today. Something that's a little different, a little strange to some people, and we'll get into that, and you'll find out why. Before I knew about energy healing, I thought it was strange too. So, at any rate, enough of that. I'm Mike Warren, and I'm with a company called Alternative Health Concepts. You can go to our website right underneath my name here and check out a great site, a lot of good information about how you can help yourself heal yourself. We believe at Alternative Health Concepts that your body is a perfectly designed machine to heal itself. The body is self-regulating, and it figures out and can figure out what's best needed. Now, with that, obviously, we have to do some minor tweaking and put in the right food and right supplement, right nutrition. In some cases, the proper medicine. Whatever it may be, it's a team effort that we have to work on to help our body heal itself. And one of those modalities that I've learned recently with my wife going through what she's going through with bladder cancer. This bioenergy healing is an amazing modality, and it works, and it is real. I don't know much about the science behind it, but I know anecdotally, firsthand, that there's something to this. So with that, I'm really excited to have Christine Hardy, all the way from South Africa. By the way, Christine, I did some mathematical equation. We've had some people from around the world, and you and Tracy are the furthest we've ever had. You're 10,000 miles from me. The next furthest one we had a guest on was from Australia, and they're only 8,000, so you beat them handily. So welcome, Christine. Really glad to have you. I know that in looking at your website and going on your website, you're a bioenergy healer first. And you do other modalities and other things. You're a Reiki master. You do life alignment. So before we get into all that, tell us a little bit about yourself, what brought you here, why you are a bioenergy healer, and how you help people a little bit. So just tell us your story about why you're here.
That could take a whole hour.
Okay, well, and that's fine. We want to learn. Give us the condensed version.
Okay, well, obviously it's a journey, but I've always been interested in psychology and philosophy and kind of my own personal growth and self-awareness, really. And I think it's only when you get challenged in life that you start seeking answers to your own questions. And that was the case for me. So I didn't have any health issues or anything like that. It was more emotional. So I was seeking answers to my emotional challenges that I was going through in my personal relationships, in my marriage, and something that was like a marriage made in heaven started to have little hassles and problems in it. And so I needed the answer, like how I'm going to make this better, what's wrong with me, and all of that. So it started off on that journey, and one thing led to another, and over the years I became a counselor for Lifeline. I don't know if you know, that's like a helpline where you help people who've got problems and they call in. It's like a call center, and you help to talk them through their issues. And then I just kind of found myself going on one workshop after another, and expanded my awareness and my consciousness, and read every single book that I could get hold of that was to do with personal growth until I exhausted every book I could find. And then one day, someone said to me something about chakras, and you were saying, I don't know anything about this kind of thing and energy, and I didn't know anything about that either. 14 years ago, that was a foreign word to me. And so my story really started with my daughter because she had health problems. She had scoliosis of her spine. She grabbed one of my books that I had been reading, which was Caroline Myers' Anatomy of the Spirit, which really talks about how our emotions are linked and held in our physical body. And so she said, Mum, I want to go and see a network chiropractor because I believe I'm carrying a lot of burdens in my spine, which was due to me eventually getting a divorce. And she carried that weight on her shoulders as if it was her fault.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really quite sad. But yeah, long story short, when I was actually in that network chiropractic room, I don't know if you know what a network chiropractor is.
No, maybe explain it real quick.
Yeah, a network chiropractor is someone who manipulates the spine, but not in a physical way. It's not very gentle, almost accessing the gateways of the spine. So that was my first I suppose, introduction to energy work, because I saw what he was doing and I thought, this is really strange, because he's a doctor and I thought this was hocus pocus. And obviously not, because he comes from 3 generations of chiropractic doctors from the United States. And here he is in South Africa doing energy work, and I could hear these people crying and releasing emotions. And while I was waiting, a voice in my head said, one day you're going to work together with that doctor. And the other voice in my head is saying, don't be crazy, you're a hairdresser. How are you going to work together with a hairdresser to, working with a doctor? They're bad. But anyway, it was a voice in my head that was leading me on my journey. So that's where my journey started, with exploring energy medicine. And I went off for a healing session myself to try it out. Nothing really sort of blew my hair back, except I thought it was very relaxing, which was the Reiki. And then I think the mind-blowing thing was when I actually had what we now call life alignment, which is what I'm practicing and teaching, where they found the emotions that were stored in my body, and I had an enormous release on something that was found to be going back to when I was 6 years of age. And my brother nearly died at the age of 6, and the emotional trauma of that, well, actually he was 4, I was 6, was the family trauma which had impacted me, and this primal scream left my body, which was kind of really unusual for something like that to happen, because I can talk about it, and it wasn't like a big emotional thing for me, or so I thought. But what I understand and realize now is it's at a deep emotional cellular level that stuff was being released, and it was not just my stuff but my parents' anguish which was being released at the same time. So when I walked out of there, I just knew that I had to learn this, and I just didn't know how I was going to get through it. It looked a bit complicated, and she was swinging a pendulum, and she was muscle testing me, and she was going through all these long lists of things, and I just didn't understand a thing. All I knew is that I had to do it. So long story short, here I am 14 years later. I'm a full-time practitioner and teacher. I've traveled and worked in Australia to teach, and I've been to Saudi Arabia, which is very unusual for a person, especially a white woman like me, like not a white woman, but just literally a woman like me with blonde hair, going to a country like that. And also...
So let me stop you real quick. You said you went there to teach or to work with patients?
Where to work with patients and to teach.
Ah,
I was for 1 solid month.
how did you get invited there, or what took you there? Did you have friends there, or?
I got invited there. It was one of my clients who actually came over to South Africa with her husband on business, and she heard about me and she came in for a session, and then from there she used to fly over specially just to have a session with me from over there. It would be better for me to go over there, so I suggested to her, why don't I come over there? So that's how it happened.
Nice. Yeah. Awesome. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just kind of wanted to know where you were coming from there and how that happened. That's exciting.
It's been an amazing journey to where I am now, because it's almost like I knew without knowing that this was my destiny, and I didn't question it. And I've been in the hairdressing profession for 30 years, and it was like, how did I manage to make that transition so easily? And I think it was just because I didn't call it that voice in my head that I just trusted, or my gut feeling that I just trusted. And so I went with it. And that doctor that I was mentioning earlier on actually did end up being my patient.
Really?
So Yeah, so the voice in my head was actually telling me something that was very truthful. So that manifested into reality.
So that doctor that you originally, I guess, worked with or actually had a session with, is that what happened with yourself?
No, the session with him, he's the one I took my daughter to because
Oh,
of
okay.
his spine problem. And so, and as I was sitting in the waiting room, it was when I had this voice tell me, you're going to work with him one day.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Now, is he also a teacher of this, or did you learn from him, or
No,
you just end up working with him?
no, not at all. He actually just came in for a private session after I had qualified. So my teaching and everything came from a doctor of natural medicine.
Okay.
He's Dr. Jeff Levine, who was the pioneer and the developer of this life alignment, which has under the umbrella of life alignment many other healing modalities or modalities that are areas of specialization, let's put it that way.
Okay. So I was going to actually, you brought it up, and so I was going to ask this question, but since you brought it up, so you're called a bioenergy healer, and then you do life alignment, but they're one and the same, basically, from what you just said. Is that the same thing?
It is the same thing. When I first started,
Okay.
I didn't know what to call myself. I mean, do I call myself a holistic healer? Do I call myself, you know, that's energy medicine that we're basically doing? But 14 years ago, I didn't know what to call myself. So I asked the man on the street, I said, do you know what an energy healer is? Do you know, and a lot of people say, no, they scratch their head and say, oh, no, I don't really know. Wow, what do you do? And so you'd have to explain it. And so I coined it now bioenergy healing because in Western terms now, we understand that the body is an energy system and it's been well accepted, whereas, this has been something that's been going on in the Far East and China for 5,000 and 3,000 years respectively, and for Western way of looking at medicine is relatively new.
Can I stop you right there, because you mentioned on your website, which I'd never heard before, I'll get into my personal experience with this in a bit, but for those of you might be listening now live or during the replay, watching this on replay, what are some of the scientific sides of this? Because my experience so far with this, particularly here in the States, maybe not so much where you are, but the scientific or the medical community, the regular allopathic medical community, kind of poo-poos this whole thing. They call it woo-woo, they call it different names, and there's no basis in science in this. But you mentioned Nikola Tesla as having realized this maybe even 100 years ago about the way our bodies are composed. Can you just touch on that a little bit, maybe the science side of what you do and why it is scientific?
Yeah. I use Nikola Tesla because, more than 100 years ago, he was saying our brain is a receiver and also a transmitter of information. So quantum physics now is very different for us when we understand quantum physics, that everything is interconnected. So we aren't separate. Like with Newtonian physics, everything was made up of the sum of its parts. So with Newtonian physics, we understand, with quantum physics, we understand that everything is interconnected and we're not isolated and we're not separate. And so when we look at it from that perspective, we have a better understanding of how energy medicine works. So, so if anyone wants to sort of go into that further, they can, and you can read things like Greg Braden, The Divine Matrix, and The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton, and those kind of books kind of explain it in great detail. But when I first started this, it was about, like I say, doing it kind of with a feeling that I know this works, but I don't know how it works. Right. But now there's plenty of information out there, scientific information now that supports the work that we do. Hence, the word bioenergy is now scientifically accepted.
Okay, so
Or
that term, if I were to go and look up on Google, I might be able to, if there's been research papers done on this or anything like that, as far as more of the traditional scientific means, or is it still a new area?
there's so much information out there now. In fact, I've trained 2 medical doctors. When I first started, I lived in a very conservative town here in South Africa, very religious, very conservative, and I just was so enthusiastic about this work and the results it was producing. I don't know how I had the guts to do it, but I used to call them doctors, not even knowing how to explain myself. I was so raw and so new at it. Enthusiasm, and they would sit there with the body language, like this.
Yeah.
What do you want my time for here, and all the rest of it. But I set the intention. This is what energy is all about. It's about setting the intention out there, because if you think of your mind as being a receiver and a transmitter of information, what we're doing is putting our thoughts and our beliefs and everything out there into the field. That field of energy is a conscious field of energy, and what we are doing is putting out what we are thinking and what we are believing, and all of that, it comes back to us. So you called this talk negative thoughts controlling us and all that, and that's kind of really where my main area of expertise comes in, is looking to see on a subconscious level, where are people's thoughts taking them? Are they taking them on a journey that is positive for them, opening up doors for them, or is it holding them back?
Well, and I'd like to take that a step further, Christina, because that's a perfect entree into where I am with my journey and with my wife, having contracted cancer. And this all happened 4 or 5 years after we started this company. And our product that we make, BioPro Plus, that you can see on our website, is an immune modulating supplement that you take, and it helps modulate the immune system. Well, then my wife, back in November, was diagnosed with bladder cancer. And so we started on that road, and we've always had a lot of customers using our product as they're going through different cancer therapies, whether it be chemo, radiation, or even surgery, because our product is a bioidentical product that helps. It helps to regulate and offset the negative effects of the immune system that happens when you're going through chemo, because as we know, chemotherapy or radiation just totally annihilates our immune system. So our product helps build that up. Well, I know that our product isn't a silver bullet. It's not magical. It's just one little piece of the puzzle that helps our body regulate its immune system, because it is the same protein that our bodies produce to do that out of the thymus gland. But that's a whole nother story, and that's not what we're talking about here. What I found is, when I started, go ahead.
It's bioidentical, so
yes.
So there's side effects or something else.
Yeah. So it is bioidentical. It is the exact same protein that our thymus gland produces. We take it from a bovine source of thymus. But at any rate, getting back to what I found is there was a lot of common things in any chronic disease, but I was studying specifically cancer and understanding and researching different modalities and different techniques. And obviously one of the main things that I came across was the toxin levels and things that we put in our bodies, both physically and just through breathing. But the other thing that I found that it just stood out like a sore thumb. I mean, literally, no matter where I went and who I went to and who I researched in the alternative world, is there's an emotional component to every chronic disease. And our body, being energy, as we know now scientifically, we know that it all works together, and it's all electrically charged. Our cells are all work together. There is this energy force. Now we know that, and I believe it's scientific, we know that there's blocks or emotional blocks that happen in our subconscious, as you mentioned, taking you back to 6 years old, that these blocks actually can set up our body for chronic disease. They can block our body's immune system from being able to heal itself. And then cancer, as an example, takes over and a tumor grows. And once those blocks are unblocked through a person like yourself, through an energy healer, bioenergy healer, amazing things start to happen very, very quickly. And I don't know if that's your experience or if I explained it right. I'm explaining it from my perspective, what I've learned and what's happened with me.
Explained it very, very well, Mike. I mean, because really, you don't need to get scientific about it. It's obviously those that are skeptical want to analyze it and understand how it works. But energy doesn't really work from a mental construct at all. And I think it's good to just let go and for once, place your trust, get your head out the way, get your mind out of the way, because it's the head that messes us up most of the time anyway. Because, obviously, depending on our life's experiences, I don't know, what stress, I'm sorry to hear about your wife, it must be quite challenging, but I don't know what stress that she's been through, but obviously we get ill as well through accumulative stress. And the way we view the stress has a big part of it as well, because something can happen and then one person can have the same experience but view it completely differently. And so it's the way we perceive things, and our perceptions sometimes along the way get distorted, and then we take on those belief systems which then set a pattern in our lives, which then we're on automatic pilot, and we just keep on reacting and behaving the same, and this emotional charge just builds up, and then these blocks that you quite well said, they are blocks. So what we do is identify those blocks that are there without any verbal communication initially from the person. So I don't need to know that whole person's history. So I would just be able to, the body would talk to me. So based on Chinese medicine, we work with, the acupuncture points in the body and access those points to be in the body's communication system, and use the body like a computer to identify where those blockages are. And as you quite well said earlier, just now, those things can happen, those blocks, when the body's wisdom is so amazing. It can happen instantaneously, where you just are giving a program to the body that it recognizes, and instantaneously it's just shifting stuff. And you don't have to always wait, because obviously everyone's different in the way they process and download and what have you. So,
Yeah, so that is what happened with my wife, and I'll just share a brief example. She's been going to a naturopathic doctor here in California, and we were getting some results, and she put us on some different protocols, and we're really working with my wife. And she said, I have this doctor associate of mine. He happened to be a chiropractor, as you mentioned, and I'd like you to go see him. And it was funny because she said, it's way different than anything you've ever experienced. Just go there with an open mind and see what he can offer you. So, we were a little hesitant, but we did. We went, my wife and I went, and we went in, and exactly what you just said. She laid down on the chiropractic bench, and, we thought he was going to do some chiropractic work, which I'm a little bit familiar with, but not even that familiar with that. And, the next thing he started doing, he was putting his hands on certain places on her body and testing her, and he didn't really even ask what we were there for, and things started happening, emotions, it was wild. I wouldn't have believed it. I got emotional, my wife was emotional, just things that happened, and he after that first session, he explained to us that he doesn't have to know what it is, that the body tells him what's wrong, and he goes there, and he found some areas that possibly were blocks with her in her subconscious level. And I say this all, it might sound really weird, and I wouldn't have believed it, quite honestly. I wouldn't have believed what's happened to her over the last few months of going to this doctor if I wouldn't have been there every session and watched it and saw the results and saw what happened after, how she got better. Just just from some weird techniques. I don't know how to explain it other than that. So it's very exciting what you do. So walk us through. So somebody, maybe that's exactly what I just did, but if somebody comes to you and where do you start? What does the first session entail?
Yeah, that's interesting because obviously people want to know because people are normally afraid of something that's new. So
Right.
I think that's a really good one to share with people. So when people come in for the first time, not understanding anything about energy, what I do is I show them this chart. Can you see this chart?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a picture of your energy field. If I put it up that way, there's your energy field there. It's taken with a high-speed camera called Current photography. And I just show them what the energy field looks like because we can't see the energy field because it's a much higher vibration than the physical body. So, that's one way I show people that it does exist. And I explain to them that there are lots of things that impact this energy field, which for us, as energy healers, we work very differently to how a doctor does. Obviously, a doctor works with physical body and diagnoses if there's a pain in your left knee, treats the left knee, whereas we go to the root cause of a problem. So the energy field is like a blueprint of your body and everything that's gone on in your life. So it's a multi-dimensional aspect that we're working with it for emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically, obviously. So I explain to people that this is like your electric fence. It will expand and contract depending on how well you are on all of those levels. So I do a test with them and I show them, okay, have a positive thought. Let's see what happens when you've got positive thoughts to your energy field. And I will normally show them with dowsing rods and show them how it expands and contracts. But also muscle testing works very well, for kinesiology. So we do that as well because it's a biofeedback response from the body. So the body doesn't lie. The muscle contracts when it's in truth with something, and when it's not, the muscle will relax depending on how you ask the question in a positive or a negative. So I give them a little bit of an understanding of the energy field and how it works, so they don't have any misperceptions that I'm going to be kind of like come along and create a miracle for them, because a miracle may not happen straight away, and sometimes not at all. I mean, you can't give false expectations. I don't want them to come with any false expectations. But this works on everything and anything, on every level. And so I normally ask also, what is the intention for you to be here today? What do you want to work on? And sometimes people will have something physically wrong. Sometimes it's physical and emotional. Sometimes it's relationship problems. Sometimes it's something more serious. But at the end of the day, the body's wisdom knows. So we set the intention, but the body gives us the information. So someone will come, they'll lie down on a bed just like your wife did. Yeah. And I then take them through the process of how I'm going to be working. And then I dowse for information without them telling me too much. So for example, if I say, why are you here? I want it in a short sentence. I'm here because I've got a relationship issue or financial problems or something like that. I don't want to know all the details because I'm not working as a psychologist. And psychologists, apparently I've been told by psychologists that have been to me that what I do in one session takes them 6. Mm.
So I will agree with that. And let me just add something that our doctor said while we were going through this. He said it doesn't matter if you believe in this. It doesn't matter if you're religious or not. None of that matters. He said you don't have to believe me. Just see some results. Just come a couple of times and see the results. See how you feel differently. See how your energy level will be up. And he didn't even say enough of that to put that in our subconscious to make us believe it. It simply made, for a skeptic like me, it was reassuring for him to say that, because I could look back and say, oh, wow, this is great. We're not going to tell you anything. You figure out what's wrong. And he did. That's what was amazing. So this energy field and having that, I don't know if it's a gift that you have. I believe that anybody can learn it from what I understand now. And I used to think, well, that was kind of the woo-woo part, that, only certain people had this gift. But I don't think that is the case. I think if we tune in and understand that this energy field exists, then I think anybody has this ability. Then correct me if I'm wrong there.
No, I think no, you're perfectly right. I say to people, you can give people a recipe to bake a cake, but one cake will taste better than the other, although the recipe is the same, because it's made with love. So the one that's made with love and passion and all the rest of it is going to taste better than someone who doesn't really enjoy cooking. They've got the ingredients and they just throw it together. So it is a job or a profession that you do with love.
Yeah.
And you put that essence into it, and that's everything. And it's a very experiential thing. I actually do believe that, I stand up and give talks and presentations to people and show them how it works and explain the scientific side of it and all of that. But at the end of the day, it is about experiencing it, as it was for me. People would, like I say, talking about chakras, and I said, what the hell is a chakra? I have no idea what a chakra is. What does a chakra do? And all that. Now I can explain to people what those things do. I mean, in fact, my husband comes from a scientific background, and when I came home with my pendulum and I said, I'm going to learn how to use this, and he sideways and said, well, can you explain it? I said, no, I can't explain it. But he said, but you better be able to explain it, because otherwise you're going to look an idiot. So of course, now I can explain it now, but in the beginning I couldn't, and everyone starts like that. And I think it's actually good to start, I've had people that come to me that have been skeptics. I've even had people come on my workshops that are skeptics. And that's weird, because, normally a skeptic would rather stay away, because, again, if you're skeptical, it's like, but I love skeptics. And the one chap who came on my workshop, he wants to test me out. He came with 2 identical bottles. They were pumps, asthma pumps. And he said to me, okay, I want you to check with my body. If this medication, one of these isn't good for me, I want you to tell me which one isn't good for my body. So just through simple muscle testing and doubling up with checking my findings with my pendulum, out of those 2 identical bottles, I told him that the one definitely wasn't good for him and the other one was. Well, he kind of just rolled his eyes back and he said, I do not believe this. He said, I was ill for 3 months going to the doctor with the prescription for this. And he said, in the end, I said, it's not helping me. I'm feeling worse than I was before. And all he did was half the dosage. And he was perfectly okay. And so that's the only difference between those 2 bottles, was the dosage. and he said, it's taking you 2 seconds or 3 seconds to find that out. And I suffered for 3 months. So no skeptic anymore.
Well, and that's an important part of what you do, because that was something that we did that I was a real skeptic about. So we literally took in a shopping bag full of supplements to this doctor that my wife was on. It was a massive protocol that she was doing, because she chose to fight her cancer all naturally. I should say, not all natural, but as far as no chemo, radiation, or surgery. So she wanted to do it what we call the natural realm. And so he said, bring in all the supplements you're taking, anything you're taking, vitamins, minerals, whatever it is. And he started going through these things, and some he would say, take 3 of these a day. He was very, very specific. Now, he wasn't reading the labels. He wasn't picking up anything. He was just simply, he would hold that product or touch it and touch my wife at the same time. And I'm assuming that it was some type of an energy current, or he was connecting the energy, so there was a flow of energy there. And then he would go through. Well, the interesting thing that I know that it wasn't BS, so to speak, is our product that we have, the bioidentical product, BioPro Plus. It comes in a packet form that is sublingual, and then a form that is a more concentrated form of the same protein, which we dilute with a silver solution, and we pour in your mouth and swish it around, and it's absorbed through the mucous membranes. Well, we had both boxes of that product on there. There's no way he knew about our product, because it's relatively new and it's not branded out there where everybody knows what that is. And we had both those boxes on her. And he laid all these things on, you know, a few at a time and went through it. And he said, take 2 of the packets a day and take 1 of these. And so I stopped him and I said, those are the same product. He said, oh, okay, well, great. It's telling me to take 2 of these. Well, the one he said take 2 of is a much lower dose than the higher one. So he said, take 1 of the higher and 2 of the lower. And yeah.
You see,
yeah,
isn't it amazing?
Yeah, there is no way he could have known that. And I don't care if he's a speed reader. He didn't take the package. He didn't look at any of this stuff. That's what blew me away. It absolutely blew me away.
Absolutely, that's how it works. It is, and when I'm teaching people how to use a pendulum to dowse for their own health, it's really hard to get the mind out of the way. And like I said, this doesn't come from the construct of the mind at all. It's about connecting with your own inner knowing. The body has its own wisdom. So when you asked earlier, can anyone do this? Yes, they can, but they've got to tune in. And we've been, for so many years, tuned out that it takes a while to tune back in. And when you tune back in with yourself, then you are able to help yourself and help others as well. So, you know, when I'm dowsing for information on the body, I'm not looking to see what it is because I don't want to influence what I know. So I don't even look. I work by numbers. And even the emotions that I pick up, they work by numbers. And then I pick up 3 or 4 words that lead to a story. And I say, well, okay, these are the words that lead us to a story. This is the area of your life that this story has impacted. And this is the time frame. What happened then? And then they come up with the story. And sometimes it's not the right story. And I have to probe for a bit more for them to get the memory. Because it's very specific to a specific moment in time. And when we've got that, that is what we call the issue that's locked in the body's tissue that we're needing to work with to shift. But going back to what you were saying about dowsing and muscle testing and what have you for things like that, you see the body knows as well, because what you're doing is you're tapping into that person's energy field. And you're asking, do I have permission, first of all, to ask this question? And if you have permission, then you go ahead and then you ask whatever the question is. So if it's supplements, you can either hold it over the navel or on the parotid gland here, and you ask the question. So if you were out with yourself and no pendulum, but you wanted to muscle test, you actually even use your body. When you fine-tune yourself, you can use your body as a pendulum. And you can just check, and you know that if you're coming forward a little bit, that's a yes. If you're going back slightly, that's a no. So when you're really in tune, you can do that, and you can test for yourself. It takes practice.
Yeah. So you teach that as well to individuals, or do you teach mostly practitioners?
No, I teach individuals who come from various backgrounds, so from any background, anyone can learn it, and like I say, my most proudest moment is teaching, obviously, medical doctors, because in the beginning I had a bit of resistance, and now there are more and more medical doctors who are opening up their minds to this. It's just a matter of, like I say, well, they want to understand it, but they can't necessarily in their medical profession go around with a pendulum. Homeopaths are using pendulums, but you know, they use them discreetly sometimes and just go out the back and use the pendulum to find out what the remedy is that the person needs and how much. So that's kind of how it works. I've also helped myself in the past where I had a skin problem, and the skin problem wouldn't go away after spending thousands of rands on skin specialists and doctors and being on 2 lots of antibiotics. It didn't go away. And eventually I realized I must have an emotional issue. I mean, I do the work, but I wasn't doing it for myself.
Sure.
And I identified what the emotional issue was with the help of someone else, because sometimes it's not so easy to tune into your own emotions because you're dealing with all the stuff. So it's better to get someone to do it for you. And a time frame came up of 3 months prior to when the skin problem erupted. And that was connected to a very highly stressed moment when I almost had a car accident with my children in the back. My husband was driving and fell asleep at the wheel. And can you believe that incident only showed itself in my physical body 3 months later, so I couldn't relate the skin problem being connected to an emotional issue. But as soon as we worked with the emotional issue, the symptoms initially got worse, because that's the same with the homeopathic remedy. The condition can flare up and get worse before it gets better. So that's what it did initially. I looked like a red lobster. And then 2 days later, next day it had gone by 70%, and the following day it had completely gone. So that was after 3 months of being on medication and antibiotics. Nothing worked, and then working with the emotional issue is what sorted out the problem, plus a bit of a detox. So I think detoxing the body is very important as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's weird. Got a echo all of a sudden. Are you guys hearing my echo?
Oh, no, not too bad, no.
Okay.
Okay, you're okay on my side.
Okay, great. I was going to just suggest, if anybody has questions, please put them over in the chat section. We'll answer them. Or at this point, Christine, if anybody wants to sit in and ask questions live, I guess we're fine with that, aren't you?
Absolutely.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, great. So if anybody wants to jump in and take a seat and ask questions, feel free. So what do you think? Obviously, huge benefits for people that come to you and use it from all different areas. So you mentioned relationships. Obviously, this isn't just for somebody like my wife that's sick or anything like that. Relationships are all emotion based. Anything that we do, any interaction that we have with anybody, comes from the energy within our body, I guess. So we can help all different areas. What are some of the other areas that you help people with that may not just be disease, like you mentioned, relationships?
See, Mike. So, you know, the things that we can't see that impact us are radiation, and we're bombarded with electromagnetic fields around us that are way stronger and higher and low and extremely low frequencies that impact the sensitive energy of our body, which, as you said earlier, communicates via a cellular communication, which is the same as the Earth's magnetic field. And you know, this gets disrupted and is a bombardment on its own with this continuous, you know, in our homes we have Wi-Fi. Even if you're not using your cell phone, it's emitting a frequency the whole time. You know, when we travel, air travel, in our car, we are impacted with these unseen frequencies coming at us in all directions. And our body's delicate system is taking a hammering. And, you know, some people who are skeptical might say, oh, that's ridiculous. I've been using a cell phone for 20 years and I'm absolutely fine. Look at me, I'm okay. And it's the same with smokers. Used to say, well, I've been smoking for 20 years. I haven't got lung cancer. I'm fine, you know. But it does. And there's plenty of scientific evidence to back up and support that as well on the internet. So, you know, there's plenty of people up in arms now about where cell phone towers and masts are going and what have you. We can't get away from it. It surrounds us and permeates every single part of our bodies. I mean, you know.
So how does what you do help with that? Can you help with that, or is that just something we really have to deal with?
We have a body point, which we call the electromagnetic point on the body, which is right here. And we can touch and balance that point. But of course, as soon as you go out and subject yourself to being in the environment again, then, you know, it's not going to hold for too long. So you can't just keep on balancing that point. You need a form of protection and you need to take precaution. So I'd advise how to take precaution, how to minimize that. It's the same with children, you know, with attention deficit disorder and things like that. It's a neurological stimulant. So they're on their, you know, their games and in front of a TV and on their computers and all this is extra stimulus which doesn't help. So it's about minimizing all of that first of all. And then we do have what we call vortex technology, which are our tools which we help for healing the environment and healing the body. They are small little magnets which are held inside a card, and when they are put, let's for example, on a body point, which will be like an acupuncture point on the body, it infuses and works with balancing and helping the body to balance with a frequency that is specifically for a function. And so we use those for healing the environment and for working as a tool with the body, which speeds everything up instead of just doing everything just manually with our hands. But we don't use computer programs or anything like that to identify what the root cause of the problem is or to rectify it. No instruments at all. It's all done with the body's knowledge and the body's wisdom and the energetic frequencies that come from our own body. So obviously it's important that I have to keep my frequency nice and high. So I have my own regime to do that. And those are what the cards do, yeah.
Christine, which brings into a question that Teresa asked over on the side. You can see it says, on your site, I see that you work remotely. And I wonder how this works with you figuring out energy when you aren't in person with that person, which is a great question, because I know that when my wife was going through this process, which she still is, the doctor will touch her and specifically certain points on her body. So how do you do that remotely?
Oh, okay. Well, I work with a body chart and I work with the person's handwriting or a photo or a piece of their DNA. The easiest is handwriting. So I get them to email me and I print out their handwriting. And then I access the information through their handwriting and I ask, do I have permission to enter that person's energy field? And then I work with a body chart. So instead of the physical person being there, the body chart is on my bed, the handwriting goes underneath. And I do a full hour session with all the dowsing for the body points and the dowsing for the emotions and the time frame and area of life that's been impacted and any other extra information that I can find that's going to help. So as I said before, the healing isn't necessarily done from a mental construct. So what I like to do, though, is because I'm so fascinated with helping people to move from the subconscious stuff to the conscious stuff, because then it empowers them to be able to make choices and decisions in their life, and I can help steer them to where they're needing to go. But what I do then is I send a report of what my findings are. I give them a chance to reflect on what it is that I'm presenting to them so they can think about what happened in that particular time frame and how that impacted them. And I will say it's either connected to your beliefs or it's connected to the start of something new that happened then. So I give them enough information that they can pretty much go to that moment specifically. And then I say, well, okay, this is what I've balanced for. And then I look to see how can I best support them, or how can they best support themselves now with that new conscious awareness. Most of the time it's stuff people know already, but sometimes they're needing to shift. There might be forgiveness that needs to take place. They may need to look at it from a different viewpoint so they can change a belief that's not working for them anymore. So I can take them on a way of reinventing it in almost a way. If they're going back to something, let's say it was a car accident, and they have really bad scarring, and it was a really emotional time for them. And at the time, along came the fire engine, red lights going, blue lights going, the police and everything. And you know, all of this has an impact on them. Even sometimes later, just that color red or that color blue, if they see it, gives them this anxiety in their body, and they don't know where it's coming from. So we identify all that and then take them through a process where they can actually do things to support themselves, to help their own healing as well.
Well, you mentioned earlier on in the story about the lady from, I don't know, I think you said Saudi Arabia, I'm not sure, that actually came to you. Now, could you have helped her the same way, just long distance? If you hadn't seen her physically, would it still have worked as well?
I did for plenty of times long distance, because she traveled all over the world. So she was in one place at one time. So it was very important for her to continue with her sessions, because, you could have 2 or 3 sessions and then that's it, done. But if you're living a highly stressful life, like she was, she needed the continuous support. And so it was almost like keeping her on track. But eventually she didn't listen to her body, and she eventually had a complete breakdown and had to stop what she was doing and then be supported again. So again, I can only guide people where they're needing to go, but if they're not listening to that guidance, like I say with some people, you may have a severe illness, and you may not even have permission to work with that person, because their higher self is saying, there is a life lesson to learn in this.
Wow.
And
that's kind of deep.
Until you've learned this life lesson, then, it's given to you as a gift. In other words, the illness is given to you as a gift. So if someone breaks a leg, why are they breaking that leg? Why are they needing to slow down in life? What is it trying to tell them? So we have a look at that as well. But yeah, sometimes I don't get permission. So if I don't get permission to work with the person, then I tell them, I'm sorry, I'm not getting permission to work with you right now. There might be other simpler reasons why I don't get permission to work with them, like they're dehydrated, because the cells have to communicate with each other well for me to do the balance. So even from a distance, I can tell if they're dehydrated, and then I'll send them a WhatsApp message. I don't know if you get WhatsApp in the States, or it's like Viber and all that. So you send them a message and say, hey, have you had anything to drink? Drink a glass of water right now, because I can't proceed with the balance because you're dehydrated. And it's like, oh, I'll get a message back. Okay, I've had my glass of water. You can start now.
Interesting. Bob asked a question. I think he's asking me. The chiropractic story begs this question: how does one know which are trained and which are not? And if you were asking me, Bob, with my wife, we were referred to this doctor by our naturopathic doctor to go and give it a try, because she recognized the need for unblocking those emotional blocks. And there were several that my wife had, and I'm sure there's several that all people have, because it worked in the subconscious level. So they weren't even things that my wife was aware of at that point until they were brought to light, which was really another amazing part of the story, but I won't go into that for obvious reasons. But many things that I saw firsthand, I'm no longer skeptical of it. In fact, I've referred a friend to him, because I believe what he's doing is real. It's just not hocus pocus stuff. It's real. It's energy, and I see the results. So that's why I was excited when we got to talk, Christine, because even since originally when we were trying to get on a few weeks ago and couldn't, it's some amazing things have happened with this, and it's every time I go there with my wife, I start realizing that, man, this is a valid modality. This energy healing is real. It really works. But I think maybe the bigger question Bob's asking is, how do we find people like you, or find the right people that aren't just charlatans, that aren't out there just taking money and pretending, if you will? How do you find that right person?
Yeah, well, if you haven't been referred, like you're referred, then then how do you do that? I mean, okay, you can go on the internet and you can check people's different websites out and what have you. But today you can create a really great website. But what is it that is going to tell you that something resonates within the information that's in there, that gives you the confidence that you're going to do that. So, for example, on my website, I've got lots of personal stories on there as well, which gives a little bit about me and my personality and what I've experienced and what I've done. It's not just like cold, if you see what I mean. It's a big part of me and my personality. So there are lots of testimonials there as well that have come through from people that have had sessions with me. So I think those are sort of things that you need to look for and see the background and the experience of the person you there. Ideally, if you don't have someone that's already been, because a lot of my work is referral. So although I do advertise, the majority of my work comes through referrals. But otherwise, what can you say?
Yeah, I would guess that is the best way would be to go through a referral and have somebody that's had experience with a particular practitioner. Really, with any modality, I mean, it is hard. It's something that isn't easily said.
Yes.
It's kind of like a doctor. I mean, you go to a doctor because they're out of a book, and maybe it's your insurance covers a particular doctor, and you go to that doctor, and you might not resonate with that doctor. You might not like that doctor. I've fired doctors in the past, and it's kind of along the same lines. I think.
Yeah, but obviously, as well, I have been trained in what I'm doing. It's not that I just have a natural gift, because some people say, well, I've got a natural gift. I would stay away from that to a certain extent, because I've come across people who said they've got natural gifts, but they don't know how to protect themselves, and then they're taking on everyone else's stuff into their own field and not cleansing their own field, and they get some sort of transference, which isn't ideal. So look to ask, do you have certificates? So what has your training been? What's your background? I mean, you would come to me if I told them I was a hairdresser before. I mean, that there would be a bit of judgment on that. Okay, well, what does a hairdresser know? There was a stigma about hairdressers as well in the past, but I've run my own business I was self-employed for 30 years. I'm a self-motivator, and I think just, you just got to have a look and see, where has that person taken them to where they are now? How did they get there? What is their, what training have they had? I think that's important.
Sure, absolutely. All those things play in, and the interesting thing about what you said, if that person resonates with you, that's something that's tapping into an area that a lot of people aren't familiar with, to understand how their own body reacts with a certain person or something. And I'm just learning that, and it's so I think that would be further down the scale. I think at a certain point you have to use your mental capabilities and your wherewithal to try and decipher true people that can help versus the charlatan out there, because there's many of those in all fields, unfortunately. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. So hopefully that answered your question, Bob. We're coming up to the hour. I think go ahead, Christine. I'm sorry.
So I was just saying that what you were saying is there has to be a healing chemistry between the two people as well. So it would be the same if you were seeing a psychologist or another health professional. If there was something about them you didn't feel comfortable with, the chemistry is not going to be there. And so it's about feeling comfortable with that person. Yes.
So we're at the top of the hour. If anybody doesn't have any other questions, we'd like to kind of wrap this up. I've got, it's your evening, so you're probably getting ready to fix dinner, I would assume, right?
It's been such a brilliant chat. It's been so lovely, and you've got one of those faces and the way you talk as if like you're the neighbor, and that makes it so easy to talk to you. It's lovely. I've had interviews before where all the questions have been like, posed beforehand, and then it's like stilted. And I love the way this kind of interview has flowed, and that's kind of how I envisaged when I saw you, that it would go like organically and naturally, which it has. So thank you for that.
No, thank you for being here. That's one of the things that I love about this format, Lab, because it literally, it's like, you're in South Africa, I'm in California, and it's like we're in the same room, just in the living room over here chatting. It's wonderful. It's awesome. It's just, it's so great. And I know our viewers enjoy it, and that's why we put our stuff up on our website. You can go to our website, which is right under my name, and see all the blabs that we do. We do one of these once a week. We've got some great people on here and some great content. All of it is there for your benefit, so that you can learn from these different modalities. There isn't just one way to heal disease, and I think that's probably the biggest thing that we try and teach or help people learn, is that there is no one thing that's going to work for everybody. You have to, especially when you're dealing with disease such as cancer, which we tend to help people with a lot. It's such a ominous disease, and it can overtake you quickly, but it does not mean it's a death sentence. There's lots of things that you can do. There's lots of modalities that you should do, and they all work together. And it's like I always say, it's like a big jigsaw puzzle, and you get the piece here and a piece here, and you start putting them together, and before you know it, you're in remission. And so that's the important part of understanding your body, understanding that your body is self-regulating, and that your body is the only thing that can heal itself. And that's the most important thing. A doctor can't heal your body. They can help, and they do help, but they can't do it alone. Your body has to respond to what they're doing and take it to the next level itself by letting the immune system work and do its job. So enough of that. I always like to end these with giving our guests the last word. So Christine, really, really appreciate you being here. You've been a wonderful guest, and hey, nothing says we can't do this again. It's been a lot of fun, so we might let's do it again.
Maybe we can, yeah, who knows, do a mock healing session to show people what it's all about. But I don't know how you do that with this little space here.
Yeah, I don't know what you need there either, but that would be fun. I would love to do that. I would volunteer to do that and let people come on and see that.
You're on. We can do that. We'll talk about it. Okay. And then we'll see. Yeah, we'll discuss it afterwards. I'd like just to say thank you to the people that participated as well. I think it was really great that they came in and asked some questions.
Yeah, absolutely. It is exciting, and really thank you for being here. But go ahead and finish up. Give us the last word, if you will, and what you'd like to leave people with today.
Okay, well, I think my last word very quickly would be to say, if you're struggling with absolutely anything in your life, be it emotionally, physically, or whatever stresses or strains you've got, you don't have to do it alone. We've moved on from those days, and there are quick and effective ways of helping yourself and seeking the help to support what you're going through. You don't have to do it alone. You don't have to hit the same brick wall all the time. You can learn how to work with the challenges that you've currently got, and everything works, as you were saying, together, and that's what it's about. It's not about either or. It's about finding a combination of things to do together to help you. And you also need to be empowered to live a balanced life. There's no point in trying to sort out one thing if you're not doing what you need to do to have that balance in your life. Awesome.
Wonderful. And with that, we'll end our blab today, and thank you for being here again. Really, really appreciate it. And hey, I'm already looking forward to doing this again. So we'll see you all soon, and thanks for being here.